to do actuarial science or you know, something to do with investment banking. Like, I wanted to be rich, you know? Because I come from a middle-class family in Zimbabwe, which is equal to, there's like 2 classes in Zimbabwe. It's either you're making millions or in US dollars. It's either you're making millions in US dollars or you're like living on, you know, $100 to $300 a month. So I'm at the other end, living on $100 to $300 a month, and that's a simplification, by the way. And coming out of Zimbabwe, I was like, you know what, I want to make money. I want to make my family, you know, have a better life. I want to drive a Mercedes-Benz ML 320, you know, 2011 model. And that's what I wanted. It makes sense because, you know, I'd look around my world and, you know, people were having it, you know, some people were living the good life, and I wanted to live the good life as well. And my guess is, you know, where a lot of us are in that position, you know, we're here because partly we want to do good, but also partly we want to, you know, make it in life. And this is related to Leaders Today. And I remember writing my personal statement, and I'm not sure about what you guys wrote, but I could, you know, take a little poll that in the last paragraph, or at least the second last paragraph of your personal statement, you're like, you know, I want to go to the US, get an education, and make a difference in Africa. Yeah? Did you write that? Second last paragraph?
I did.
You know? So a lot of us, if it's not all of us, you know, most of us said something to that effect in our personal statements. And that's great, right? But I'd like us to think a little more about that. And to think about empowerment. Because a lot of the time, you know, and I'll use myself as a case, right? I don't want to be judgmental or anything. But a lot of the time, you know, I have come here to the US. I'm so passionate about development in Africa, you know? I'm so passionate about making stuff work back home. And I come to the US and I do social studies because I want to learn the stuff that's going to make me able to make an impact in Zimbabwe, right? So it's like, you know, anyway, I ended up shifting from actuarial science, from wanting a Mercedes-Benz to doing social studies. I'll probably never drive a Mercedes-Benz in my life because of that. But it's okay, you know? Thank you. It's okay because I think I'm passionate, I believe I'm passionate, and I believe I'm learning the things that I need to learn to make an impact. And this is a question I got to think about this week. When I think of empowering and what it means, back to my assumptions, the assumption is that somebody is giving the power. Right? So, go back to me doing social studies, you doing economics, engineering and stuff, is that, you know what, I will get all this knowledge, and I'll go back to Zimbabwe, or wherever you're from, and I will give the power to people. And another level of that sometimes, and I'm simplifying things, I know, it gets a little complicated, but the assumption is that they don't have the power, right? And I have to get an education, and I'll go back, and I'll give them the power. And that's a problem. Because it goes back to what I said, because even if I go to Harvard, even if you go to Princeton, UPenn, Dartmouth, Trinity College, College of the Holy Cross, St. Lawrence, wherever you go to, you won't get all the answers. If we were able to get all the answers, we've been working on this development. The development has been something that we've been thinking about for the past 60 years, 70 years. And if we really had all the answers, and had all these smart people, incredibly smart people, with all these resources, billions of dollars, we would have arrived at all the answers. We don't have all the answers. So I can't assume that I can simply, you know, go back to Zimbabwe and simply give people power, because my own understanding is incredibly limited. And our understanding is incredibly limited. So that puts us in some kind of, you know, fix. Right? Because what makes me think that after 70 years of all these incredibly smart people trying to solve these things, I'm the one who's going to be the savior? Chances are super slim, next to impossible. So, to summarize everything, great, we're doing all these degrees, we're here, we're writing our personal statements, we want to study, we want to save Africa, but it gets a little more complicated than that, because we don't have all the answers. The world is so complex, Africa is so complex, your country is so complex, and we can't assume that we can simply go and empower people, give people the power that we have gained from interacting with super cool professors. Because that assumes they don't have the power and there's nothing that other people can do. So, let me try and connect this to Leaders Today. So Leaders Today is a non-profit organization that I founded in Zimbabwe last year. And it's basically a youth leadership development organization. And it's really a result, it's really formed as a result of the negative realities in Zimbabwe. There's so much positive stuff happening in Zimbabwe. We have so many beautiful men, women, hot men. So it gets a little more positive than what you see, you know. I'm an exception to the rule. So we have tons of brain drain, you know, and it's shocking. In Zimbabwe, I think it's shocking. 1 in 4 Zimbabweans lives outside the country. And this is my estimate, by the way. It's not published anyway. But I'll tell you where the estimate is coming from, right? In 2002, it was said there are 13 million people in Zimbabwe. That was the 2002 census. It's reported that there are about 3 million people in South Africa. And we can assume about 1 million people spread across the world, the rest of the world, Australia, the UK, the USA. Tons of Zimbabwe. So that makes 4 million people outside the country. That makes total people who consider themselves Zimbabweans 17 million, and with 4 million outside the country, that's about 25%. 1 in 4 Zimbabweans living outside the country. Scary. That's scary. 25% of the population. And guess what? A lot of that population is some of the smartest people in Zimbabwe. I'm not saying that the people who are in Zimbabwe right now are not the smart. I mean, they're pretty smart. A few exceptions again. I won't say woo. But, it's scary. 1 in 4 Zimbabweans lives outside the country. We have corruption. Have I bribed a police officer before? I won't tell you, but I'll just say, corruption is everywhere, right? Corruption is not for the Minister of Finance or the Minister of Economic Development or the police. It's everywhere. I want a place in university. I'm going to bribe I want a passport, right? Or an ID. And I need to bribe somebody to get that. Driver's license. And the funny thing is, I got a driver's license in 2009. And I didn't have to go for another test. That already says something, I'm not exonerating myself from this. Did I bribe to get my driver's license? Yes, I did. And that's a big problem. It's a very, very big problem. Because I sit in my self-righteousness in my sofa when I'm at home and I say, this government is corrupt. So we have all high unemployment, 95% in 2009. So Zimbabwe is facing so many challenges, and so many of the countries that you're from. And what makes me really stay awake at night is that I'm a young person, and they're young people in Zimbabwe, and a lot of them and myself feel incredibly overwhelmed by these challenges, and we don't know where to start. Right? Like, I don't know where to start. My sister right now is learning how to drive, and I know in December she'll be going for a driving test. And I'm thinking, actually, if you add up the math, it's actually cheaper to bribe. That's a very funny system, and it's overwhelming. How do you change that in a society? Great, we just came out with the talk, IMF, let's do this growth, but there's tons of bleeding because of the corruption, which is not just at the top, but imagine 13 million people actively participating in corruption almost every day. It's overwhelming. And we can sit down and do economic models, you can do this, blah, blah. I can sit down and do my social studies. And where does that fit in? So Zimbabwe faces all these challenges. And as a result, there's a lot of mistrust among people in Zimbabwe at, all these different levels. People don't trust the government or the government of national unity. People don't trust each other. Despondency. And despondency because this is so overwhelming. Like, you don't know where to start. And you just put your head on the table, sink your head in the sand, and, you don't know what to do. And we're super selfish. That huge beggar, it could, send it, a lot of people would share it. But that selfishness is because we're so engrossed in the short term. I'm worried about bread and butter issues. I'm worried about how I'm going to feed my family. And I lose sight of the long term. Justifiably so, right? Justifiably so, because I have an immediate problem is I don't have bread and butter. Because I don't have bread and butter, if it means that I'm going to bribe to put bread and butter on my table, then I will have to do that. Right? But that's such short-term thinking, because in the long term, that perpetuates incredibly warped values in a society to a pretty much considerable extent. So Leaders Today is coming in and saying, you know what, we're faced with these overwhelming challenges, and you know what, there is no economic model that is going to entirely solve this. No matter how much, even if I get a PhD in economics, and I get a Nobel laureate in economics, it's really going to solve some of the things. I'm not saying that it won't solve a lot of the things. It will solve them, but it will only solve some of them. And there's a lot of stuff that are going to go by the wayside, not solved. And what we're saying is that what we really have a problem with is a problem of the values that we hold. It's not so much the technicalities of building an economy or making it grow, or making it develop. That's a key part of it. I'm not discounting that. That's a very key part of it. It's important that you guys get PhDs in economics and engineering and you go and build roads and fix economies. But so long as we have one values, so long as I'm entertaining the thought of, getting my sister to bribe so that she gets her driver's license, and next thing I'll be like, I want to be the Minister of Finance, and I'm now pushing for big deals. I'm going for high stakes. There is a similarity between a Minister of Finance thinking about high stakes and bribing his way through high stakes or engaging in corruption through high stakes, and an ordinary citizen bribing to get their driver's license or their passport or their ID. It's the same. They share the same values, right? And the value is, you know what? You've got to do what you got to do to get what you need in the short term. And that's something that probably needs to change. And that's what Leaders Today is doing. It's like, going right at the values and saying, we are not taking so much initiative, We're just waiting for things to come to us. We're waiting for the IMF to tell us, you're going to do economic structural adjustment programs, and they mess up your economy. I'm sorry, that's what I think happened, It really did, in many ways. And of course, there's lots of considerations to make international politics and everything, but whatever the case, very few people are taking initiative. Incredibly reactive, just waiting okay, so what are they going to do? Well, based on what they did, this is what we're going to do. Tons of initiative that we need to take. We need to innovate. With whatever we have, to think more broadly, to think more creatively about how can we optimize and maximize the resources that we have. How can we think creatively, innovatively about what we have? And that's what we're trying to do with the young people in our programs. And integrity. Integrity for this really is, I won't lie to you, built from the whole corruption thing. We just need to have integrity. And not just integrity in terms of I want to be truthful, I want to be honest, but really to use that as one of the key values that helps us orient society. So as a politician, as an economist, as whatever I am, I have to have integrity and be true to what I believe to be true, and to really consider your values in whatever I'm doing. you know, to figure out how can we deal with each other with integrity, respecting each other's values, while acknowledging the fact that some of those values may need to be negotiated and changed so that we can make progress.
Sorry to interrupt. You have 5 more minutes to wrap up.
Thank you. Thanks. And so this is the Leaders Today model that we have. Our vision is a generation of engaged and socially responsible citizens in Africa. Sorry, I didn't add that part. So that's what we're really going for. We're not trying to develop the next group of leaders, the next group of ministers, the next group of presidents, or the next group of business leaders. We really focus at the citizens because that's really where the challenge is. The challenge is not with our leaders. It's not removing Mugabe that is going to solve the problems in Zimbabwe. You know, if people think so, and I'm not ashamed to say this, I think you're wrong. The problem is not, maybe part of the problem is with Mugabe, right? Maybe part of the problem is with Julius Malema. But removing him will not solve the problem. Because these values are entrenched. This is something that's seeping through the whole of society. It's not a problem with an individual, but it's the problem with the values that we hold. And we need to become a little more engaged, take a little more initiative, be more innovative, and be socially responsible. Act with integrity. If we think we're going to really move. And very few degrees are going to tell you about being engaged and socially responsible. So great, let's send kids to school, let them get literacy, but we need to go beyond that. So our mission is to inspire, mobilize, and empower Zimbabwean young people to work together beyond socioeconomic barriers and lead community development efforts. And I'll now go back to what I talked about empowering, and these degrees that we're doing. So this was our model at the beginning of at the start, when we started our organization in May. And if you look at this arrow goes in one direction. So Leaders Today was empowering students through leadership training and providing internships. And the students then developed community development projects that empowered communities. And the direction of those arrows is important because the assumption is that, you know what, there's nothing the students can teach us and the direction can't go in the arrow can't go in the other direction. You know, Leaders Today is just going to go there and give students empowerment on a silver platter. And the students are going to go to the communities and do the same. And we have to go through a process of learning, and this is our new model, where we realize as Leaders Today, there's stuff that we know that students don't know, but there's a ton load of stuff that students know that Leaders Today doesn't know, and that requires some overlap there where we empower each other, right? Where it's not just about us giving power, but having a mutual exchange of that power. And same with the students in the communities, right? It's not just about the students coming up with projects from the top of their heads and saying, okay, this is what we're going to do. But then how do you work with your community? How do you mobilize your community to come up with a project that really helps push the community forward? And so it's the same with Leaders Today and communities. And this changes the whole power balance discussion, so much that it's not about me doing social studies, but it's about me getting a piece of the puzzle and sharing that piece of the puzzle with the people that I interact with when I go back to Zimbabwe, and having them provide the other piece of the puzzle, and we put that together. So that's that about Leaders Today, and I shared the flyer because I won't go into the details of, you know, how successful we've been. That's I don't know. It's besides the point, you know. The point is, what I really would love for you guys to get out of this presentation is we don't have all the answers. Right? We can do all these degrees, it's great, it's amazing, it's super cool, but we don't have all the answers. We need to actively search for the other pieces of the puzzle out there, you know, and not be just stuck in our ivory towers and be trapped in our own senses of self-righteousness and, you know, and I'm sorry I'm using incredibly tough language. But I think it's important because, you know, I go to a university where we feel like we have all the answers in the world when we don't. Yeah. So that's that. Please feel free to get in touch with me. That's my email address, my phone number. If I was a girl, I wouldn't be putting that up, but I'm a guy, so it doesn't matter. And you can. Our website is under construction, so please bear with us. But at least you can get the meat of what it is that we're all about. I'm 2 minutes over time. Thank you very much for your attention.